Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time. This time on the Kindness Project, oranges, apples, and we have part 2 of our interview with Kristen Johnson, author of Ain't You Got No Manners. You like to keep your intro surprised, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Welcome, my friends, to the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a girl who is a cutlery-avoiding orange.
And I'm joined by the newest member of the Knights Who Say Knee. It's Chris James.
Can I not be the bloke in a ditch in The Life of Brian instead? You know, the guy who's doing the 100 Years Silence and then suddenly Brian falls in his ditch. I want to be that bloke. I
was very tempted to switch my intro since you heard it when we had to restart. And I was just going to go, he's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
You know what? You should have saved that one for a future episode of the podcast. But the reason that I'm calling you a cutlery-avoiding orange is because we had a conversation about what the next question of the podcast should be, and we decided, and I'm starting early with the question of the podcast. What's your... If you could describe yourself as a fruit, what would you describe yourself as, and why? And what did you say?
I said I'd be an orange because they vary greatly in flavour, shape and size.
Okay. What would you be most of the time? Would you be a tangerine? Would you be a satsuma? Would you be a blood orange?
A chunky sour one.
A chunky sour orange?
Well, they're my favourites.
Oh, I think you'd be a satsuma. Sweet. And
I don't like satsumas.
No?
No, they're too sweet.
Satsumas are too sweet. That's how you know what the worst kind of orange is? The one that just, you open it and it explodes. Do you know what I mean?
Those are awful. But you know what ones I don't like? The ones where you just open them and they just kind of shrivel. And they prune like your fingers in the bathtub.
You're like that ex-woman, like the woman who touches fruit and it shrivels in her hand. When does a fruit ever shrivel in your hand?
You know, the peel, it looks fine when it's got the peel on. And you peel the peel away and it's just kind of like all the juice is sipping out of it.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen one of them. What are they?
They're vile.
Vile? Is that the official name for them?
No, they're oranges. They're not a different category of orange. They're just...
Vile orange.
They're just oranges that aren't right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just get a bad batch.
If loving that orange is wrong, I don't want to be right. So yeah,
no, you do. Because those oranges are vile.
So I think, right, that I'd be... I don't know. The problem is I've got my favourite fruit, but I don't know whether I describe myself as this particular fruit. Do you know what my favourite fruit is, don't you?
A banana.
Definitely. But I don't know whether my personality is aligned with bananas. I don't know what I'd choose as a personality type linked to a fruit. What do you reckon?
A banana for a personality type, I think, is bright.
Right.
Easy to spoil.
And bendy in the middle. That's the bit that I'm struggling with. I'm not that bendy in the middle. No comment?
You're not wrong.
Yeah, exactly. True. Anyway, on that note, listeners, we'd like to hear from you about what fruit you think you are, and why. And extra points for the funniest answer you can give us.
Yes.
And those points, Charlotte, are absolutely worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And like extra points if you can teach us about fictional fruit or anything from mythology, because I love mythology. I'm a mythology nut, please, guys.
Hold on. What's mythological fruit?
Fruit that only occurs in mythology.
Like what?
Like, I don't know, the apple.
No, it's an apple. It's an actual apple. It's not mythological, is it?
Yeah, but
Right, listeners, you get extra points if you can tell us a fruit that only appears in mythology, because I don't think one exists.
Or you get extra points if you can tell us the myth behind a fruit.
What do you mean the myth behind a fruit?
You know, some fruits, they're involved in, like, myths and legends and stuff.
I mean, there was the apple in the Garden of Eden as well, wasn't there? You know what?
That's what I meant, not
the apple gets a large brunt of the credit, doesn't it? You never see a banana never see a coconut.
You know, the apple in the Garden of Eden, the apple that fell on Isaac Newton's head.
I know. Apples get all the credit.
No.
It's never a kiwi, is it?
No.
It's the kiwis don't get.
It's never
credit.
a nice orange, is it?
Yeah. Why do apples get all the credit?
They get all the bad reps, don't they? They're hitting people on the head and tempting them to do bad things.
Yeah, actually, apples have got a bad rep.
Yeah.
Bananas have got the best rep, innit? You know why?
Why?
Monkeys like them, and everybody loves a monkey.
Some people think monkeys are disgusting.
Who?
People think monkeys are disgusting.
Well, you don't like monkeys.
I like monkeys. I'm just not a fan of the fact that they eat bugs from each other's hair.
So do you and your sister, and I'm not complaining.
No, we don't.
On that particular note, what I'd like to do is for you to tell our listeners where they can get in touch to tell us what fruits they think they are.
Online. Yeah.
Just
Ola Kindness. Facebook has a search bar. Ola Kindness. kindnessproject.co.uk is the email. I think you can just Google us and we'll pop up.
Yeah, just the Kindness Project anywhere on the interweb. You'll be able to find us. And don't be afraid to answer, because what we've got at the end of the show is quite a lot of people answering the question of the podcast from 2 weeks ago. So don't be afraid to email in with any answer from any of our previous questions of the podcast. And they are all available on the Kindness Project website under podcast questions of the podcast. So have a look. If you fancy, right next to the little questions of the podcast button is a merch button, and you can buy your very own Kindness Project merch. Yeah, exactly.
Phone cases.
So they are not flying onto shelves particularly, but you're more than welcome to.
They're not even leaving the shelves one at a time.
Yeah. So you're more than welcome to have one of them if you'd like. So should we get on the show?
You do have to purchase it. Yeah. But the monies don't go to us.
Yeah. The monies don't go to us. What am I talking about every week, Father? No, the money doesn't go to us. We're giving every single penny away to Charlotte. I mean, charity. But yeah, should we get on with the show?
Yes.
So this week we've got the second part of our interview with Kristen Johnson. Kristen wrote a book called Ain't You Got No Manners? And it's all about how to behave more politely, which we could potentially learn from.
Oh, that's rude, isn't it?
I was talking about me.
Still rude, isn't it? Don't be rude to yourself, mate.
I won't. Shall we listen to the second part of the interview?
Yeah.
The reality of it is regardless of what you believe, there will be some commonality between you. You know, I don't know that many people who don't love their families, or I don't know that many people who don't, want to have an enjoyable life. They just think their particular opinion set is the way to live, and I think we need to be a bit more nuanced in our understanding of people with other opinions. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so too. I think there's nothing wrong with speaking out for what you believe.
Yeah.
For example, here in the UK, there's massive opinions on both sides about Brexit. That's one thing. And Scotland's independence a little while back.
Yeah.
There's so many things that controversial issues, real issues right now in the U.S. It's gun violence, all kinds of things. So there's so many issues that people get passionate about, and there's nothing wrong with.
But you know what? You know what's interesting about the Brexit thing over this side of the pond, Kristen, is my dad was a Leaver, and I voted Remain. And we're of different generations, different opinions, but I know my dad's a decent human being, right? I know he's a good bloke. He has a difference in terms of the way he sees the world that informs his worldview, but fundamentally there's more that connects me and my dad in terms of human nature than sort of sets us apart. And that's been interesting because we completely disagree on loads of stuff. But the underlying element is I still know he's a good man. And having that difference in relationship, and I think, and I'm certainly guilty of this, I don't know if you are, sometimes you get caught in your own little bubble of people who think the same things of you, and you just get caught in these different opinions. I think that The Other Side documentary is an interesting way of doing it, because that's taking you out of that bubble and actually having to go to meet people who you might vehemently disagree with, but might not be bad people.
Exactly, yeah. And there's a phenomenon called the walkaway foundation, where Brandon Struck, a former Democrat, is leading people out of the Democratic Party, and also he's trying, but he's going and he's trying to start a dialogue and engage people. And oops, that's it. Talk about cell phones. I silenced that, but I didn't know it would go off, but I silenced it.
No worries. No worries.
But what I was going to say is that people may have a different point of view, but they can engage the other side, to your point, and find out, try to persuade rather than, or not persuade. We don't all have to think the same way. That's the thing. And sometimes on social media, I think that there is a tendency for groupthink.
Agreed.
Kind of the sneeze effect or the yawn effect, or they've shown they have a term for it in terms of cognitive bias.
Yeah. Cognitive dissonance, it's called. Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance, and the other is kind of like the bandwagon effect.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing this, it must be cool, I want to be.
I want to be. Look, we're social animals, aren't we? We want to be where we think we're going to fit in. So I completely get that. Can you just give me an insight into the gun debate? Because from the UK, we don't understand enough about it because we've never had mass sort of licensing of guns. And I look at that debate often really confused because I struggle to see the other side of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting question, and probably we could spend a whole show on. What I will say is that, I think that trying to understand when horrific events happen, I'm talking about some of the things. Some people start either politicizing it on social media, spreading incorrect information, things like that. Some people make jokes or make remarks they shouldn't, and so on.
Yeah.
And in terms of social media, we all just have to cool down and calm down, because it's always a tense time in terms of when something horrific happens, whether it's
emotions are high, aren't they? Yeah.
Really have over there, whether it's a mass shooting or whether it's a terrorist attack or anything else that might where emotions are very, very charged.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea to just kind of
take a step back.
And social media, because it's just kind of that empathy and sensitivity. It's just you have to be.
It's not there anymore.
You have to be so. But one of the great things about that is it's allowed people to share stories in terms of a disaster or find loved one and share the good. Because I quote one example either on my blog or something else, but when they had hurricanes and rains, you would have people, I think it was in Texas, coming down with a boat and rescuing people from the flood. There is that positivity in terms of human nature, and it's just a matter of negative stuff. Gets minds.
Completely get that. So before we, thank you, it's been really insightful. And before we share where people can find out a bit more about you and your book, I know you've listened to a couple of episodes of the podcast, so you'll know that every week we do a question of the podcast, and we ask our audience a little bit about things that aren't particularly kindness related, but because we're quite curious people, we like to ask. Now, I've got some amazing questions for you, and we didn't give you any pre-warning. We never pre-warn our guests on these particular questions, but I'm gonna share some with you anyway. So, as you're a writer, if you could be, and this was our first ever, like a year and a half ago, our first ever question of the podcast, if you could be any character from one of your favourite books, who would you choose?
Oh, that is, let's see. I think I would have to go, well, I love the Harry Potter series, so I think I would have to go with, Harry himself. I mean, who doesn't want to be Harry Potter?
Okay, fair enough. And what house would you be if you were in?
I'd love to say Gryffindor, but I think I'd probably end up in Ravenclaw. I don't know. I need the sorting hat right now.
Yeah, you do. But apparently you can pick, according to Charlotte, and we'll have a conversation about this on the podcast, I'm sure, at one point, you can pick two houses and combine them. And they've all got these special names, apparently. I didn't know that. Are most people generally good?
I think so. I think there's some people that are just wired wrong, and there's evil people. There's definitely examples of evil people in the world. But I think that most of us are a mix of good and bad, and sometimes good people do acts that you couldn't imagine just out of life circumstances or whatever.
Yeah.
But the people are capable of redemption.
Yeah, agreed. Who's your favourite Muppet?
Who's my favorite Muppet?
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard to tell. I think either Kermit and Miss Piggy are great, but I love Kermit and Miss Piggy, but I also love Ralph.
Now, it's really interesting you say that, because that's Charlotte's favourite. I think there's Ralph. Yeah, Ralph is Charlotte's favourite. Mine, I think there's only one answer to this, and it's got to be Animal, hasn't it? It's got to be Animal, I think. But we can agree to disagree as long as you know I'm right on that particular point.
Great, and Baby Animal from the Muppets.
Oh, Muppet Babies. We didn't have any answers on Muppet Babies, but yeah, that is a good one. Another writing-related one. If you were writing your autobiography today, what would you call it?
I would call it "No One Wants to Read Another Autobiography."
Are you not a fan of autobiographies?
What?
Are you not a fan of autobiographies, or?
I love autobiographies, but the thing is, I'm not a famous person, and I want to make sure that if my autobiography were written, if I were writing it, it would be something that would really, really impact the world and provide people with some insight and entertainment and things like that. Not just saying, "Oh, look at me, I got my autobiography."
Yeah, understand. You'd want it to have a positive impact on the world, wouldn't you?
That's just that's kind of my personal.
I see that.
I love autobiography.
I think a lot of people write them too early sometimes as well. When you see somebody in their 20s who've written it, you go, actually, it's like, I'd like for you to do more in the world before you do it. What's your favourite childhood memory?
Oh, I I have so many, but I think one of the ones would be traveling and going to a cabin with my family, a family cabin, and just being in the middle of nature and just being roaming around with my family and enjoying nature, and my late grandfather explaining all the birds and animals and various trees.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It's really interesting. So one of my favourite days when we were out in Cyprus was we went to a waterfall up in the mountains. So there's a big mountain in the middle of Cyprus called Mount Troodos, and you can drive up there and swim in the waterfall. And literally one of my favourite days were just swimming in the waterfall, climbing the trees, just doing stuff, outdoorsy stuff. And we're not particularly outdoorsy family, but I think there's just a real thing of just being in nature, isn't there? That do you still enjoy that?
I do. That sounds like a beautiful waterfall. Beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, to be honest, there was some guys jumping right from the top, but I wasn't brave enough for that. I did a little pathetic jump about 5 foot down. It wasn't that particularly impressive, but I was quite proud of myself at the end, so it was fine. What's your next book going to be about?
I think it will probably be a takeoff on the social media thing, or if it gets published, a book that I'm writing with co-author that's science fiction.
Okay.
And that's going to get published, but it's just going through a round of edits. So that's one of the books that I have. But the next book that I'm currently going to write is going to be about social media, and I think one of them is going to be about Instagram.
Okay. And the last question that I'm going to ask you is world's best double act.
What is that?
World's best. So world's best duo or double act. So Abbott and Costello, or Art and Garfunkel, or what's the world's best two-person team ever?
Well, I think I would have to say, oh gosh, that's a very, very, very good question, and I would have to say in terms of social media, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, but
okay.
In terms of tech, but also in terms of double act, probably. I think Sonny and Cher.
Sonny and Cher is an amazing choice, really, really good. And I've got one more for you. Let me just give you one more. What's your favourite Disney or Pixar movie?
Too many to pick. I think I have a soft spot for the original Lion King. I've not seen the new one. I understand it's fantastic. I also love the original Fantasia, and also Frozen is good. The original Toy Story, although most of the ones in the series are good, I haven't seen the new one. And I also like Bambi and Snow White.
Oh, so you're going through all the classics. I love that. Bambi made me cry the first time. You know what? I there is a thing about Disney and Pixar movies that still makes me cry. I don't mind admitting it, but the first 10 minutes of Up.
Oh God, Up!
I'm in tears.
Your heart. I mean, everything you know about movies, about animation, like they say, oh, it's kind of like to entertain the kids, an advertisement for toys. I've heard that, it's just to entertain the kids while they're hopped up on sugar. It's absolutely true. However, Up really, and I think they got away with it because they were Pixar, but
yeah.
they really broke the barriers and tackled and grabbed you by the heart.
Yeah, you know what?
Kids get it. Kids they get this old guy just really, really loves his wife and is remembering his wife, and it's kind of like maybe they see their grandparents in it or something like that, but they just somehow they get it.
But that to me was just an amazing piece of storytelling. Do you know what I mean? What they're incredible at is just telling good stories. I think they're just really, really good at that. And that comes from the tradition of Disney doing it for a number of years. But yeah, it's really good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our chat today. Where can people find out more about you and your book?
Well, there's KristenJohnson.net, which KristenJohnson.net, which is my website. There's Amazon, of course, my Amazon page, and Kristen Johnson Amazon author page. And they can order the book on Amazon, and also my publisher, avegaspublisher.com. And the book is also available as an ebook on Smashword.
Okay.
A lot of formats: Kindle, Mobi Pocket, very different ones. So any of those are a good place to find out, and also on social media, of course.
Okay, amazing stuff. Thank you so much for joining us as a guest on the Kindness Project today. I've loved it. I'm going to go home and have my dinner now, but you're just starting your day, so have an amazing day.
Amazing, and I'm sorry we didn't get to talk to Charlotte as well, but I know that she's got her experience.
She's on a work experience. She's having an amazing. She's doing it for the first time. She's doing her London commute. So she made it all the way to. Have you been to London, Kristen?
I have. No, but it was really enjoyable. What I remember is all the history.
Yes. I mean, I was born and bred in London and still love it. So I still do the London tourist thing every now and again. But for years, I don't anymore, but for years I used to do a commute into London from where I live on the Essex East London borders. And Charlotte started that now. She had to commute to work for the first time ever, which I'm wondering how she got on with that. But apparently she had a good day. And thanks for your best wishes. It's appreciated. Thanks a lot.
I'm glad we finally got a chance to chat.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Cheers. Bye.
So Kristen's amazing, isn't she?
Yes.
You don't sound sure.
My face kind of hurts.
Okay. Should we get on the show?
Yeah. It's the end. So bad.
But you know what? It is the end. And we've now only got 2 more episodes. And then we're on episode 100.
And 6 more until we reach the 2-year anniversary.
I mean, that is amazing. Mm. That is just truly. We are well into this. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about our last week's questions of the podcast. And I've got to try and find the answers right now. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about not last week's question of the podcast, but the week before's question of the podcast. Now, why am I doing that? Because when we recorded last week's, we got loads more comments in than we thought we were going to. So I want to just talk about some of those comments we got come in. So we had...
Would you like to inform them on what the question actually is?
The question 2 weeks ago, unless you're a regular listener, and if not, why not?
Why did you not start from the beginning and decided 98 seems like a good place to start? Is
what piece of redundant technology do you now miss, right? So Nick Ramsden said tape recorder, hitting the pause button on a Sunday night's top 40 to create that voice-free playlist. And that is a real thing, Charlotte. I used to sit there Sunday nights recording the pop chart.
I miss the culture of making mixtapes for the one you have feeling for, and I missed the culture.
Yeah, but you can make a Spotify playlist now.
Yeah, people do it all the time.
So you can do that. Andrew Berwick said MP3 players. John Cook said our first ever VHS player. Massive thing was a top loader with huge clunky buttons that would clank like a typewriter. I'm glad he's describing a VHS player and not a person, because that wouldn't be a particularly flattering description. What's your boyfriend like? He's a massive top loader with a huge clunky buttons that will clank like a typewriter.
Do boyfriends have buttons?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Abel said, Dad's old cameras, beautiful things. I learned to take photos on them.
So vintage cameras.
David Dennison said, what piece of now redundant technology did you love once, love? Said my brain. Tracy Kinchella, first ever games on floppy disk, Commodore 64, VHS and Betamax.
Oh, your Afro days.
Yeah, I had a Commodore 64. Mike Christie loved his CD Walkman. And Al McCann's gone philosophical because he said, I have a question as an answer. Is any piece of top technology ever redundant? People are always looking for newer, smaller, faster technologies. This means a lot of stuff gets left behind when it still has a value. Why do we have new technology? I play CDs in my car. I use a Atlas, not a GPS sat-nav, and I have cassettes, some of which are irreplaceable.
Yeah, that's the beauty and the damage of media convergence, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think if there's a quicker way to do it and actually takes up less space, why wouldn't you do it?
I'd never swap a paper book for
That's probably the only bit of old technology I love.
But I read loads on my phone and read loads of books on my phone. But I collect books like a mad woman.
Yeah. Mark Olam said, I have fond memories of my CD Walkman. It never really worked properly. Kept skipping forward or backward by itself. All the time I thought it was the coolest piece of tech. Louise said, Walkman with cassette tapes. Chris Haycock said, my little black and white 4-inch TV from Tandy. I used to watch late night under my bedsheets as a 14-year-old. Nick Elston loved his Game Boy, Nintendo Game Boy. And Brian Hill thinks he's being funny and said, what is this, the Antiques Roadshow? All right, Brian, I will put you on the Antiques Roadshow.
Would be worth
Sorry, did you just say one of our listeners, who's one of our regular contributors, wouldn't be much in the Antiques?
Sell for much on TV because it's seen as cruel.
Is that slavery?
It's slavery. People don't sell for slavery on live television. It's just
apparently, Brian, you wouldn't be worth much on the Antiques Roadshow. Danny Willis said, what about teletext? Before the internet, there was a thing that in the UK, anyway, apologies to our international listeners, where you could have it was like old school web pages that came on your telly. Have you ever seen it?
I'm terrified.
No, it is weird. John Sharman said he misses the Nokia 3210 and the game Snake. Nadine Stevenson.
You can still play Snake?
Nadine Stevenson loved her BlackBerry. And Ruth Boyton said 8-track stereo, my big brother's Ford Capri with the Beach Boys playing. And Debbie Davidson said, my mini disc. I bought it in Abu Dhabi airport on a trip back from Australia. One disc fitted 4 albums on it. I absolutely loved it. So
Can we get on to this week's question?
We can, but I just wanted to share a lot of the ones from a couple of weeks ago. And I'm glad we did. Because now I know you think Brian Hill wouldn't go for much money in the Antiques Roadshow.
Slavery doesn't work on live television.
Oh, don't try and backtrack out of it now. Don't try and backtrack out of it now. So, question of
television, it wouldn't work.
Right, okay, well, who would be worth a lot then?
The Queen?
The Queen. Are you saying Brian Hill's worth less than the Queen?
Everyone's worth less than the Queen.
Yeah, all right. Question of the day. Don't try to get out of it, Charlotte. What household object decoration, this was last week's question of the podcast, makes you feel nostalgic? My example was my nan used to have doll that went over a toilet roll to hide her toilet roll in her loo. I put that on the question, and Rob Bishop first came back and said, what do you mean? Are they narrate a date? My wife's still got one. Russell Dames, who's my brother and the esteemed editor of this podcast, knows a little secret about me, because he says He-Man wallpaper. And I had He-Man and wallpaper. Hayley Ball said the old metal biscuit barrels with the awful flowers painted on them. Auntie Floss made homemade biscuits for us in there, and they were absolutely fantastic. Jeannie Boyle said chip pans and antimacassars. I don't know what an antimacassar is, do you?
No.
No, I don't. Well, we'll have to find out. Lorna Walter said the plastic runners people used to put along their hallway. Lucy Patrick said dollies on the arms and backs of chairs. Kelly Crouchman said hanging beads and streamers. Sean Neil Watson said nobody uses tea cozies anymore. True.
Tea cozies?
Yeah. Do you know what a tea cozy is?
But it
goes over your teapot to keep your tea warm.
Oh.
It's like a jumper for a teapot.
Well, I found out what an antimacassar is.
What is it?
A piece of cloth put over the back of a chair to protect it from grease and dirt, or as an ornament.
Show me. It's not very podcast friendly, this one, is it? But,
no. It's like one of these.
Oh, yeah, my nan had them. Are they called antimacassars?
They're called antimacassars.
I used to just call them chair doilies.
The chair sheets, aren't
they? Chair sheets, chair doily. Tamsin Kane said hostess trolley, and Justin Gaffney said a ghetto blaster with a double cassette reel. I don't know whether your nan ever had a ghetto blaster, Justin, but you'll have to write in and let us know whether she did or not. And on that note, and after covering off nearly 2 weeks of questions of the podcast, that is it for another episode of the Kindness Project.
Bye.
See you next time.